Hello, Hillary. Thank you for letting me interview you regarding Erickson's psychosocial stages of development. The purpose of this interview is for you to demonstrate your understanding of the theory and how the theory applies to you and students you currently teach or plan to teach.
This is Hillary Ludwig. It is January the 13th, 2019, and I am here to discuss for our class Erickson's stages of psychosocial development.
Here is the first question. Imagine I have never heard of Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. Briefly explain salient features of Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. What is the source of this information?
Well, the source of the information that I'm using today, I found on psychologynotesheadquarters.com, which I feel had a very succinct and well-synthesized set of, or explanation rather, of Erickson's stages. Essentially, it's 8 stages of cultural and psychological, social kind of crises that we each, beginning from birth until death, experience at different times in our lives. These stages span several years at a time. Sometimes 0 to 18 months, a little bit over a year, whereas some span many years, 8 years. So the stages can be short or they can last much, greater time. But they kind of contextualize for us what it is that sort of on average or normally, what are we worried about? What are the crises that influence us in our young lives and as we age and into our adulthood? That try to help us understand where our students are and where we are, so that we can be understanding of our own development as we teach.
Here's the second question. At what stage of development do you see yourself now? Why do you think so?
Well, I am certainly at the 6th stage, which is intimacy versus isolation, a topic that I think is very timely for me. I am a 38-year-old single woman living in the Bay Area, and you can imagine I do not have children, and I'm not in a long-term relationship, and I've never been married. You can imagine at this point in my life that a lot of my friends have children, a lot of them are married, and so I hear from everyone, whether it's my mother or my friends, are you getting married? Are you dating somebody? So I absolutely fall under my category because I do think about those things. I do wonder, will I ever find somebody and will I get married, or do I still have the opportunity to have a child, or has that part of my life passed? And, how do I feel about that? It's obviously super personal and something that, actually makes me feel better to know that this is totally normal. And that all of us, question ourselves, even if we're in long-term relationships or even if we are married, we wonder, is this it for me? Is this the relationship I'm going to end up in forever? And how do I feel about that? And, where do I want to go from here? So I'm absolutely at that stage, and I'm embracing it.
Number 3 question. Explain how being at this stage of development, this may influence your behavior and outlook in your classroom. On what do you base this explanation?
Well, I think my explanation will be based on my own time in the classroom, and the way it might influence it is that as a single woman with no children, the children in my class fulfill a lot of, my need to be around kids, or my desire to be around children and to help children grow and influence the future, which is absolutely what I want to do, and how I plan on spending the remainder of my, professional life is with children, trying to make a positive influence. So I think the thing to keep an eye on is that my understanding that, I can only do so much for so many children, and they're not my children. They belong to this community, their parents, their families. And I really need to, even though I feel so connected and close to them, I need to respect what their cultural expectations are, their own family social expectations are, and be a positive influence in maintaining those, for their families, and not, let it get too personal for me.
Here's the fourth question. Identify at what level your students are likely to be in Erickson stages.
Well, that's a great question. My students actually cross over two of the stages, starting with industry versus inferiority, really learning those skills, seeing their peers excel in skills, that beginning of that competitiveness, measuring up, ranking, the importance of social status. I see that all the time. And then they cross over into identity versus role confusion. And that's absolutely true, especially now with the information that children have access to, which is anything they can conceptualize. They want to really make their mark. They want to know who they are. How do I identify? Do I feel more masculine or more feminine? Am I, ready for a relationship? Definitely starting romantic relationships, understanding the complexities of intimate friendships and close friends, and, the complexities of that. And I absolutely see it every day at school. And, it was really eye-opening to know that these are normal stages, and that their feelings, aren't just I don't want to downplay their feelings and say you're just a child. These are normal crises, and they're average. My kids are doing exactly where they should be.
Okay. Number 5. Explain how being at this stage of development may influence their behavior and outlook in your classroom.
Well, I definitely... pardon me.
On what do you base this explanation?
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I definitely see, again, I'm basing this on what I'm seeing in classrooms that I work in, 6th to 8th grade. I absolutely see competitiveness. I absolutely see almost a hyper sense of, their social groups, the sensitivity to what happens with friends, and how often that spills over into the classroom. There's a lot of drama, shall we say, in middle school, and that definitely bleeds into the classroom, that rush of hormones, causing all kinds of behavior, unexpected behavior, even from the children themselves. And they're really aware of it. Like, I'm being weird today and I have so much energy, and they're very aware of that. So I certainly see that bleeding into the classroom. We have a lot of students that are, all over the gender spectrum, and they're, really willing to, go through discovery and play with gender and play with, how they feel about their sexuality, and really explore. And I think that's great. Better to do it in a safe environment than somewhere, that they might be at risk. So I'm glad that they're willing to do that at school.